There comes a time, somewhere after 50, when you realize home isn't just about where you live. It's about how you live. It's about who you're becoming and what you're ready to make space for. I'm Julie Ford, real estate expert and longtime wellness coach, and someone who's lived in a multi-generational home for the past decade while reinventing my life and my business. And this is Home After 50, a podcast about what it really means to find, shape, and come home to a new season, to a new home, to a new version of yourself. Whether you're thinking about upsizing, downsizing, moving in with family, or just asking bigger questions about what's next, you're in the right place. Each episode, I will share stories, insights, and real strategies for women redefining home and life on their own terms. Because after 50, home isn't just a place, it's a calling. And this time, it's yours. Welcome back to Home After 50. This week, I wanted to share with you a little bit about how I respond to requests for support around multi-generational living, because this week I received an email that I'm not going to tell you who it's from, but I'm just going to read you the email, and I'll tell you I get emails like this all the time. So here's the email. Hello, I am 73 years old and am thinking about multi-generational housing. My daughter, her family, and I have been looking. Please help. Thank you. So that didn't give me a lot of information, but it's a conversation opener. So of course I replied back to her with some questions and offering my support. But I would like to say that this is just so typical in a way that I hope you'll find comforting, because I think that when people start exploring multi-generational living, they just don't know where to start. They start thinking about it, maybe talking to family about it, and it seems like such a big topic sometimes that it's hard to know where to begin. So you can, by the way, feel free to reach out to me and I can give you some next steps for your personal situation. But I wanted to just sort of touch upon where I think is a good place to start. Because next week, I'm going to be having a conversation with a builder of backyard ADUs, accessory dwelling units. And we're going to get into the actual physical build of the house and what's involved in all of that. But when I spoke with him, and they're a great company, by the way, I really respect how they're handling this. And they're very busy. I'm happy that they're taking the time to talk with me because their services are in high demand. But I think we'll have a lot to share with you in that conversation about the really practical side of things. But when I first spoke with the head of this company to talk about coming on the podcast, one of the things that they shared with me is that they have people on staff who are having conversations with families in the planning phases. And they realized, as I do, that there are often pre-conversations that should have happened or need to happen before those conversations with builders. And so I shared my toolkit with him and offered to, let his staff use it to direct people for additional support so they could be better prepared. So I thought today, before we have that conversation next week, I would just give you a little bit of guidance if you're thinking about multi-generational living around where to start. So I have my handy toolkit here, which you can see I have put all of my little Post-it stickies on if you're watching me on YouTube, just so I can get to each section. So this is a pretty big PDF guide. You can purchase the PDF. You can also purchase the actual print version too, because some people just like to work from print, and I get that. That's why I had them printed for me. But there's 7 sections in here, and in the 7 sections, I get into all of the kinds of things you really need to be talking with your family about when you're planning for and living in a multi-gen home. But where I thought we would start today is not at the beginning of the guide, but with the multi-gen family conversation prompts. So I know sometimes it's hard to start these conversations. You don't sometimes even know where to begin. And sometimes some of the topics seem sensitive. So what I've done is I've created different guidance around how to approach the conversations and then given you many prompts for how to start conversations, especially if they feel a little bit sticky. If you're talking about privacy and boundaries and finances, those kind of things, there can be a lot of emotions, a lot of family dynamics, a lot of concerns and worries. So what I've done is provided you with ways to start those conversations. And I'm just going to share a little bit with you from the toolkit today. And I hope that this is going to be helpful. So always, always, always begin with love. Begin with curiosity. Stay rooted in respect for each other and the relationship that you're in with each other and the relationship that you're nurturing by considering creating a multi-gen home together. Sometimes an easy way to begin a discussion around a topic is to say something like, I'm bringing this up because I care about you and our relationship, and I want to make things easier for both of us. Always listen to understand, not to win. That seems obvious, right? But we can all get pulled into wanting the other person to see our way. Schedule conversations, don't spring them on family members. I think this is so important. We don't often do that with our families, right? We just kind of tend to jump right in, especially if we're around each other a lot. But I think that asking if you can have a conversation around just one topic about your multi-gen planning can be really helpful. And that gives the other person a little bit of time to prepare and be ready for the conversation and be in the right state of mind. Always assume positive intent. Stay focused on solutions together. Name what's true, even if it's hard. I still struggle with this, but we can keep trying. And make space for everyone to be heard. End your conversations with gratitude for each other. Thank your family members for being willing to talk with you about these topics. And remember progress, not perfection. Family communication is a lifelong practice. We're still practicing it all the time in my family. And the more I think we can approach it with intention, the better we're all going to get at it. And the more we'll all feel supported in our conversations in our family and in our planning process for our multi-gen home. Okay, so let's talk just about a couple of areas that I think are like the biggest hotspots. And one of them is around money and contributions. It's the most charged topic. It can be the most complex topic. And I just want to give you a couple of ways that you can possibly approach starting a conversation about money. So here's one possible conversation prompt. I want us to find a way to handle money that feels fair to everyone. Should we look at splitting things evenly, or should we base it on income? What would make this sustainable for you? It is a rare situation that family members are coming together with the same resources, income, and assets. So figuring out for your family what a balanced distribution and contribution of those things are is something that's really important to do ahead of time. Here's another one. I'd love to suggest we create a family account where we each put in an amount that feels comfortable and use it for shared expenses like groceries, utilities, or home projects. And I'll just share one more, although there's several more in this section. Instead of just splitting bills, maybe we think of this like a menu of contributions. Some of us can contribute more financially, others can help with meals, childcare, or rides. Does that feel balanced? So I hope that's helpful. I'd like to also share with you today just a few conversation prompts around privacy and boundaries, because this is honestly the other I think it's tied with money for the types of tricky topics that people ask me about all the time when it comes to multi-gen living. So these scripts or prompts are really focused on protecting autonomy while also building togetherness, because everybody has to feel that their privacy and their autonomy and their independence is being respected. And I do want to say a note with that. Sometimes the older generation coming into the multi-gen home, I find that they have real concerns a lot of the time. I'm not going to overgeneralize, but I've heard this many, many times over and over about independence and privacy. Here's a conversation prompt that might be helpful. I want to make sure this feels like your home too, not just a shared house. What private spaces are non-negotiable for you? And of course, depending on how you're creating your multi-gen home, these conversations are going to look different, right? If you're one part of the family moving into a home that's already being lived in by another part of the family, there are going to be a lot of nuances to that. If you're adding a separate backyard ADU, for example, the privacy issue could be just more easily resolved by the actual layout of the house. So this is going to depend on the type of house that you're moving into together and what the physical boundaries are for privacy. And the less physical boundaries that you have, the more agreements you will have to make around privacy. Here's another one. Could we agree that knocking before entering each other's space is a hard rule? That way no one feels intruded on. It's so funny. In our house, we actually yell. I don't know why. I think it's because our entrance to my mom's apartment comes down a staircase that's like kind of far away from where she usually is in the rest of the house. She probably wouldn't hear us if we knocked. So when we get to the bottom of the stairs, we open the door just into a hallway. So we're not intruding on her privacy. And then we yell and see if it's okay to come in. And here's another one. I like this one. I'll just give you one more around privacy and boundaries. When you need alone time, what's the best way for me to respect that? Do you want me to ask, or would you rather just let me know? I love that one, actually. All right, let's see if there's any more I want to touch on today, because we can come back to these. You know what I'll do? I'll just share with you like what the other topics are, and maybe another time we'll dive into a couple conversation prompts for each of those topics. So scenario number 3 is household responsibilities and chores, so make sure you're addressing that. Scenario number 4, caregiving and changing needs, because our needs will change over time. Scenario number 5 is conflict and emotional hotspots. Number 6 is holidays, traditions, and togetherness. Number 7, adult children moving back home. Number 8, selling the longtime family home, because oftentimes moving into a multi-generational home involves selling a home that's been in the family for a really long time to then move together into a new home. And there's a lot of different issues and nuances that come along with that, a lot of emotions too. The 9th one, exit plans, what to do about when living together isn't working. Scenario number 10, future planning, legacy, and what ifs. Scenario 11, blending generations, grandparents, teens, and toddlers. There's a lot that comes along with that. Scenario number 12, health, safety, and accessibility. And scenario number 13, emotional well-being and self-care. So if you, I'm sorry, I actually have a few more. Scenario number 14, there's a lot in here. Scenario number 14, shared decision-making. Scenario number 15, welcoming new family members or partners. So 15 scenarios for which I give you a bunch of conversation prompts. So if you are at the beginning of this journey, like this woman who emailed me this week and just saying, help, what do I do? Having conversations with your family about these different kinds of important topics is a really, really great place to start. Other things you can do, you could definitely reach out to me. You can go to my website, juliford.com. If you go to juliford.com/multi-gen, I have a free multi-generational living guide there. I also have the toolkit, which is something you would purchase. It's right now, the digital version is $47. You can download it right away. There's loads of tools in here. And then when you download that, you also get invited to my monthly coffee chat, which has been really fun. We just get on Zoom once a month for an hour, and it's an open conversation about anything multi-gen. And I can answer your questions, but also there are other people in the room who support each other and help each other navigate figuring out multi-gen living. So see you next week for my conversation with Chris from Backyard ADUs. I'm really excited about that. And I hope that today's conversation was helpful. Have a great week. Thanks so much for listening to Home After 50. If this episode resonated, I'd love it if you'd come hang out with me on Instagram. I am at It's Juli Ford, ITSJULIFORD. Just remember, no E on Juli. That's where I share ideas and behind the scenes about multi-generational living, real estate, business, and creating a next chapter that you love. And if you're curious about whether multi-generational living might be right for you, you can grab my free guide. It's in the link right in my Instagram bio. It's a simple way to get started imagining what's next. Because after 50, home isn't just a place, it's who we're becoming. See you next time.